There are moments in life when you feel something stirring deep inside. You can't quite explain it, but you know something is shifting. The things that once brought you joy don't fulfill you the same way. The dreams that once seemed so clear now feel uncertain. You may not understand it yet, but that uneasiness, that restlessness, is a sign that God is leading you toward a new purpose. One of the first signs is that you start feeling uncomfortable where you are. The job that once excited you now feels routine. The relationships that once uplifted you now seem to drain you. The place where you once felt at home now feels unfamiliar. It's not that something is wrong, it's that you've outgrown where you are. God will often make the old place uncomfortable so that you don't stay stuck where you don't belong. Another sign is that doors begin to close. Maybe you applied for a promotion and didn't get it. Maybe you were pursuing a dream and suddenly it didn't work out the way you thought it would. At first it feels like rejection, but in reality it's redirection. God isn't closing doors to punish you. He's closing doors because He has something better ahead. Sometimes you'll notice that new desires start to rise in your heart. Things that you never considered before now excite you. You start thinking about different paths, different dreams, different possibilities. That's not random. That's a divine nudge. God will plant new desires in your heart to prepare you for where He's leading you next. Another way you'll know God is shifting your purpose is that you feel a sense of restlessness even when everything seems fine. Maybe on the outside your life looks great. You have a good job, good relationships, good opportunities. But deep down, something doesn't feel quite right. You can't shake the feeling that there's more. That's because God is calling you to something higher. He's stretching you, growing you, preparing you for what's next. You'll see another sign. New opportunities start coming out of nowhere. You weren't even looking. Yet suddenly, doors start opening. People start reaching out. Unexpected connections happen. That's not coincidence. That's divine alignment. When God is leading you into a new season, He will bring the right opportunities at the right time. But here's something important to remember. When God is leading you into a new purpose, challenges often increase. The enemy doesn't want you to step into your calling, so he will throw obstacles in your path. Doubt, fear, setbacks. These are all signs that you're on the verge of something great. Don't let the challenges make you quit. Another sign is that God starts removing certain people from your life. Sometimes the people who were good for one season aren't meant for the next. Not everyone can go where God is taking you. Don't be discouraged if some relationships fade. It's not rejection, it's preparation. God is clearing the way for the right people to walk with you into your next season. One of the biggest signs that God is leading you toward a new purpose is that you feel a deep sense of peace, even in uncertainty. You may not have all the answers. You may not know exactly what's next, but somehow deep down you just know that you're being led in the right direction. That peace is God's confirmation. You don't have to figure it all out. You just have to trust Him. If you've been feeling a shift, if you've been sensing a change, don't ignore it. God is leading you somewhere new. It may not make sense yet, but trust that His plan is greater than anything you could imagine. The doors that closed, the restlessness you feel, the new desire stirring inside you, it's all part of His divine direction. So step forward with confidence. Let go of the past. Embrace the new thing God is doing. Your best days are not behind you. They are ahead of you. And as you follow His lead, you will step into a purpose greater than anything you ever dreamed. There are moments in life when everything around you seems fine, yet deep inside, something feels different. The job that once brought you joy now feels routine. The relationships that once felt so strong now seem distant. The dreams you once pursued with passion now feel like they don't fit anymore. You can't quite explain it, but you know something is shifting. It's not that you're doing something wrong. It's not that you're ungrateful. It's that you've outgrown where you are and something greater is calling you forward. This feeling of discomfort is not a sign that you should give up. It's a sign that a new season is on the horizon. Too often, people ignore this inner restlessness. They try to suppress it, convincing themselves that they should just be happy where they are. But when something no longer fulfills you the way it once did, that's a sign that it has served its purpose. It was good for a season, but now something new is coming. Think about a bird in a nest. When it's young, the nest is safe, warm, and exactly what it needs. But there comes a time when the nest is no longer comfortable. The same place that once felt secure now feels restrictive. That's because the bird was never meant to stay in the nest forever. It was designed to fly. If it never felt uncomfortable, it would never spread its wings. It would never experience the sky, the freedom, the greater purpose it was created for. The same is true in life. Sometimes God will allow discomfort to push you into your next level. That job that once excited you now feels draining because it was only meant to be part of your journey, not your destination. That relationship that once seemed perfect now feels like it's holding you back because it was meant to teach you something, not define your future. That dream you once pursued now feels too small because you've grown and God is calling you to something bigger. Discomfort is a signal, not a stop sign. It's not there to discourage you. It's there to prepare you. When you feel restless, when you start sensing that where you are is no longer where you're supposed to be, that's not something to fear. That's something to recognize. It means you're being stretched. It means you're growing. It means you're being prepared for what's next. But here's the key, you have to be willing to move. Too often people stay in places they've outgrown because it's comfortable. They settle for less because stepping into something new feels uncertain. They hold on to what's familiar even when they know it's not fulfilling them anymore. But the only way to step into your greater purpose is to let go of what's no longer serving you. Think about a hermit crab. As it grows, it eventually reaches a point where its shell becomes too tight. If it stays in that shell, it will never reach its full potential. It has to be willing to leave what's familiar and step into something bigger. It has to trust that there's another shell waiting, even though it can't see it yet. In the same way, when you feel the discomfort of being in a place that no longer fits, it's not because something is wrong, it's because something greater is ahead. The challenge is that stepping into something new requires faith. You may not see the full picture yet. You may not know exactly where you're going. But if you stay stuck in what's comfortable, you'll miss what's possible. If you let fear hold you back, you'll never experience the greater purpose waiting for you. It's easy to settle in the familiar. It's easy to convince yourself that maybe you should just be content where you are. But deep down, you know when something isn't right anymore. You know when you're being called higher. That feeling isn't random. It's not a mistake. It's a divine signal that it's time for more. Maybe you've been feeling this in your own life. Maybe you've been sensing that where you are isn't where you're supposed to stay. Maybe you've been trying to convince yourself that everything is fine, but deep down, you know there's something greater ahead. Don't ignore that feeling. Don't dismiss the restlessness. It's not something to be afraid of. It's a sign that you're being prepared for something new. The discomfort isn't there to frustrate you. It's there to stretch you. It's there to remind you that you were made for more. When you feel that stirring in your spirit, when you know deep down that something needs to change, have the courage to take a step of faith. Don't settle in a place that no longer fits you. Don't stay in a situation that you've outgrown just because it's familiar. What's ahead is greater than what's behind. The best doors are still in front of you. The opportunities, the relationships, the new levels of purpose, they're all waiting. But you can't step into the new if you're still holding on to the old. Be willing to trust the process. Be willing to believe that if something no longer fulfills you, it's because something better is coming. The nest isn't uncomfortable to punish the bird. It's uncomfortable to push it into its destiny. The shell isn't too small to frustrate the crab. It's too small because something bigger is waiting. In the same way, when you feel uncomfortable where you are, it's not a setback, it's a setup. It's a sign that you are being led to something greater. So don't resist the discomfort. Don't ignore the restlessness. It's not a mistake. It's not a coincidence. It's a sign that a new season is coming. Trust the process. Step out in faith. What's waiting for you is more than you could ever imagine. There are moments in life when things don't go as planned. You pray for an opportunity, but the door closes. You work hard for a promotion, but it goes to someone else. You put effort into a relationship, but it begins to fade. It's easy to get discouraged, to feel like something is wrong, or to question why things aren't working out. But what if those closed doors are not rejection, but redirection? What if the delays, the setbacks, the unexpected turns are all part of a greater plan? People see a closed door as a sign that they've failed. They assume that because something didn't work out, it means they weren't good enough or that they missed their chance. But in reality, closed doors are a sign that something better is ahead. When one door closes, it's because another is about to open. You may not see it yet, you may not understand it now, but every delay, every no, every obstacle is leading you towards something greater. Think about a child who wants to touch a hot stove. The parent says no, not because they want to withhold something good, but because they know that touching the stove will cause harm. In the same way, some doors close in life not to punish you, but to protect you. That opportunity you wanted so badly might have led you in the wrong direction. That relationship you thought would last forever might have kept you from stepping into your full potential. That job you were disappointed to lose might have been keeping you from the next level of your destiny. When doors close, it's a test of faith. It's easy to trust when everything is going your way, when the path is clear and when everything is falling into place. But real faith is trusting even when you don't understand, believing that even in the disappointment, even in the delay, even in the unanswered prayers, something greater is at work. You may have lost an opportunity, but you didn't lose your purpose. What was meant for you is still coming. The right door, the right opportunity, the right connection is already lined up. That's why it's important to stay open to new possibilities. When one dream doesn't work out, don't assume that's the end. Just because one plan didn't succeed doesn't mean another plan isn't on the way. Too often, people get stuck holding on to what didn't work, so focused on the past that they miss what's ahead. But if you're going to step into something greater, you have to let go of what's behind. And one of the ways you know something greater is ahead is when new desires start stirring inside of you. Maybe you've been in the same career for years, but now you're feeling drawn towards something different. Maybe a passion you never thought much about is now consuming your thoughts. Maybe something that once excited you no longer brings you the same fulfillment. That's not by accident. When you feel a shift in your heart, when you start being drawn toward new ideas, new paths, new passions, that's often a sign that you're being led toward your next purpose. The challenge is that change is uncomfortable. It's easy to stay in the familiar, to keep doing what you've always done, even when it no longer excites you. But staying in a place that no longer fulfills you is not playing it safe. It's missing out on what's possible. If something no longer brings you joy, if a new dream is stirring inside of you, that's a sign you're being called to something new. Think about a butterfly. Before it can fly, it has to go through a transformation. It starts as a caterpillar, crawling on the ground, seeing life from a limited perspective. But when it enters the cocoon, everything changes. It's not comfortable, it's dark, it's uncertain. But in that process, something incredible happens. Wings begin to form, strength begins to develop, and when the time is right, it doesn't crawl anymore. It soars. That's how life works. When you feel something shifting inside of you, when new dreams begin to rise, when the old place no longer fits, it's not something to fear, it's something to embrace. It means you're growing. It means you're stepping into something greater. If you ignore those new desires, if you resist the change, you'll stay stuck crawling when you were meant to fly. Maybe you've been feeling this in your own life. Maybe doors have been closing and you don't understand why. Maybe you've been feeling a restlessness, a sense that where you are is not where you're meant to stay. Maybe new desires have been stirring and you've been wondering if they're real. This is not a mistake. This is not a coincidence. You're being led to something greater. The doors that close are not the end of the story. They are making room for something better. The desires stirring inside of you are not random. They are preparing you for what's ahead. You don't have to figure it all out. You don't have to know every step. You just have to trust that what is meant for you will not pass you by. Keep your heart open. Keep your faith strong. The closed doors, the new desires, the shifts you're feeling inside, they are all signs that something greater is on the way. You may not see it yet, but when the time is right, everything will fall into place. And when you look back, you'll realize that every closed door, every change, every new passion was leading you exactly where you were meant to be. There are moments in life when everything seems to be going well, yet deep inside, you feel a sense of restlessness. What once brought you joy no longer excites you. The job that once felt like a dream now feels like a routine. The relationships that once energized you now feel stagnant. It's not that anything is necessarily wrong, it's that you've outgrown where you are. That uneasiness is not something to ignore. It's a sign that change is coming, that something greater is ahead. Too often, people stay in places they've outgrown because it's familiar. They convince themselves that they should be happy where they are, that they should just be grateful. But gratitude doesn't mean settling. You can be thankful for where you are while also recognizing that it's time to move forward. Growth is part of life. You weren't created to stay in the same place forever. When you feel something stirring inside, when you feel like there's more, that's not random. That's a divine nudge telling you that a new season is on the horizon. But here's the challenge. Stepping into something new often requires letting go of something old, and that's not always easy. Sometimes the doors that close are the very ones you were hoping would stay open. You work hard for an opportunity, but it doesn't happen. You give your best in a relationship, but it begins to drift apart. You put your heart into a dream, but it doesn't turn out the way you imagined. When things don't work out, it's easy to feel discouraged, to wonder if you've missed your chance. But what if that closed door is actually part of the plan? What if it's not rejection, but redirection? There's a reason some things don't work out. There's a reason certain doors close. It's because they were never meant to be permanent. They were part of your journey, but they weren't your destination. Sometimes you can't see what's ahead, but that doesn't mean there isn't something greater waiting for you. When the wrong door closes, it makes room for the right one to open. Instead of getting stuck on what didn't work out, start looking for what's next. And one of the ways you'll know what's next is when new desires start rising in your heart. You may find yourself thinking about something different, something you never considered before. A new passion begins to form. A new interest starts drawing you in. It may not make sense to anyone else. You may not even fully understand it yourself, but that inner pull, that quiet whisper, is not a mistake. It's a sign that you're being led in a new direction. The problem is, many people ignore those new desires because they're afraid of change. They think this isn't what I planned, or what if I fail? But if you ignore those nudges, you'll stay stuck in a place that no longer fits you. If you keep holding on to the past, you'll never be able to step into your future. The new desires are there for a reason. They're not random. They're not a coincidence. They are preparation for the next season of your life. Think about a tree in the fall. The leaves start changing, and before long they begin to fall. The tree doesn't fight to hold on to them. It doesn't try to keep what's already served its purpose. It lets go, knowing that in due time, new leaves will grow. In the same way, when you feel a shift in your heart, when old dreams no longer excite you, when new passions start to rise, don't fight it. Don't hold on to what's fading. Let it go, knowing that something new is on the way. This is how you step into your purpose, by trusting the closed doors, by embracing the restlessness, by paying attention to the new desires that are stirring inside of you. If you stay stuck in what's comfortable, you'll miss what's possible. If you keep holding on to the old, you won't have room for the new, the best opportunities, the greatest blessings, the most fulfilling seasons of your life. They're all ahead of you. Maybe you've been feeling this in your own life. Maybe you've been sensing that where you are is no longer where you're supposed to stay. Maybe certain doors have closed and you've been wondering why. Maybe new desires have been stirring and you've been unsure whether to follow them. This is not a mistake. This is not a coincidence. You are being led to something greater. You don't have to figure it all out. You don't have to have all the answers. You just have to trust the process. Trust that the closed doors are making room for something better. Trust that the restlessness is not a problem. It's a sign that you're growing. Trust that the new desires are not distractions. They are directions. What's ahead of you is greater than what's behind. The opportunities, the relationships, the purpose that's waiting for you. It's more than you can imagine, but you have to be willing to let go of the old, to embrace the new, and to step forward in faith. The best is yet to come. What's meant for you is already on its way. And when the time is right, you'll look back and realize that every closed door, every shift, every new desire was leading you exactly where you were meant to be. There are moments in life when everything feels familiar, yet deep inside something is stirring. The place you once loved, the job you once dreamed of, the relationships that once brought you joy. Suddenly they don't feel the same. It's not that anything is wrong. It's that you've outgrown where you are. You can't quite put your finger on it, but you know a shift is happening. That's not something to ignore. It's a sign that you're being prepared for something greater. It's easy to resist change, to stay where it's comfortable. People convince themselves that they should be satisfied, that they should just be grateful. But being grateful doesn't mean you're supposed to stay stuck. Growth is part of life. Just like a seed is meant to become a tree, you are meant to evolve, to expand, to step into new seasons. When you feel that inner restlessness, when you start sensing that what once fulfilled you no longer does, that's not a problem. That's a sign that something greater is calling you forward. But here's the challenge. Before you can step into the new, you have to be willing to leave the old. And sometimes that means doors will close. You may pray for an opportunity, but it doesn't work out. You may work hard for something, but it slips through your fingers. You may give your best effort, but things don't go the way you planned. It's easy to get discouraged, to feel like you've failed. But what if the closed door isn't rejection? What if it's protection? There's a reason certain doors don't open. There's a reason some opportunities don't work out. It's because they weren't meant for you. If you could see the full picture, you'd understand why that relationship didn't last, why that job didn't hire you, why that dream didn't come to pass the way you thought it would. Some doors are meant to close, not to hold you back, but to push you forward. When you stop fighting the closed doors and start trusting that something better is coming, you'll step into a new level of purpose. And one of the ways you'll recognize what's next is through the desires stirring inside of you. The shift happens before you even see the opportunity. You start losing passion for things that once excited you. You begin thinking about new possibilities, new dreams, new ideas. That's not a coincidence. That's not just your mind wandering. Those new desires are there for a reason. They are a sign that you are being prepared for something greater. People ignore those desires because they don't make sense yet. They think, I've always done this. Why would I change now? Or what if I fail? But if you ignore the new desires, you'll stay stuck in a place that no longer fits you. If you keep doing what's familiar, you'll never step into what's possible. Growth requires movement. It requires a willingness to step into the unknown, to trust that the same force that put those desires in your heart will also open the right doors. And here's another way you know you're being led toward a new purpose: peace in the middle of uncertainty. Even when you don't have all the answers, even when you're not sure what's next, deep down you feel a sense of peace. You may not know where you're going, but you know you're supposed to move forward. You may not see how everything will work out, but you have a quiet confidence that you're on the right path. That peace is not an accident. It's a confirmation. It's a reminder that you're not walking this journey alone. When you're being led into something new, you won't always have every detail figured out. The road may not be perfectly clear, but you'll have peace that goes beyond understanding. A knowing that even if you don't see the way is already being prepared for you. Maybe you've been feeling this in your own life. Maybe the job that once excited you now feels like a burden. Maybe certain doors have closed and you've been wondering why. Maybe you've been sensing a shift, feeling new desires, but you're unsure what to do next. This is not a mistake. This is not a coincidence. You are being led towards something greater. You don't have to force anything. You don't have to make everything happen on your own. All you have to do is stay open, trust the process, and be willing to take a step of faith. The closed doors, the new desires, the peace in uncertainty, they are all signs that something better is coming. What's ahead of you is greater than what's behind. The best opportunities, the right people, the most fulfilling seasons of your life, they're all waiting for you. But you have to be willing to trust that if something no longer fits, it's because something greater is on the way. The doors that close are making room for the doors that will open. The uneasiness you feel is not a sign to settle. It's a sign to step into your purpose. Stay open. Stay expectant. The right opportunities will find you. The right connections will come. The right doors will open at the right time. And when they do, you'll look back and realize that every shift, every desire, every moment of peace in the unknown was leading you exactly where you were meant to be. Every shift, every closed door, every new desire stirring inside of you is not by accident. You are not stuck, you are not forgotten, and you have not missed your moment. What may seem like uncertainty is actually preparation. What may feel like an ending is really the beginning of something greater. You are being guided toward a new purpose, a new season, and a new opportunity that is beyond what you could have imagined. Trust the process. Trust the timing. The same force that planted those dreams inside of you will also open the right doors. You don't have to force anything. You don't have to figure it all out. Just stay open, stay expectant, and stay in faith. The right people, the right opportunities, and the right path will align at the perfect time. And when you look back, you'll see that every step, every shift, and every moment of waiting was leading you exactly where you were meant to be. The best is still ahead.